Desperate to be free from 100 years of slavery, a young man's attempt to kill an evil goddess costs him a fraction of his soul. Fortunately, he escapes her wrath and finds himself in a new world, with a situation not so far from that which he had just escaped from. The story unfolds with a young man named Jan Han angry at the goddess, Yang Qingsheng, for locking him up for 100 years. She tells Han that she would not make him suffer if he gives up his soul. Han immediately tells himself that he would be dead if she tries it again, and he has to escape by all means. She tells him that once she levels up in cultivation, she would let him go, but Jan Han does not believe her. Han suddenly thinks of a way, and as Qingsheng kisses him, he tells her that he would gladly give her his soul if she removes the shackles off his neck. But she immediately gets angry and tells him that he should shut his mouth up. Han also asks her why she is refusing to take his soul that he has been resisting to give her for years. Then Qingsheng immediately tells herself that if she forcibly takes his soul, there are greater chances that the soul would disobey her, and if he gives it to her willingly, she would be able to cultivate without any hindrance, and she would be able to discover 3 of the 7 secrets of soul and also get 3 additional lives. Qingsheng tells Jian Han that she would remove the shackles, and if he tries to run away, she would kill him. Then after removing the shackles from Han's neck, he immediately uses his power to hit her, and she becomes shocked that he has been cultivating in secret without her consent. Jan Han then tells Qingsheng that he has been looking for a way to escape from her, as she has made him her slave for more than 100 years, and immediately Qingsheng becomes furious, and she begins to gather her powers as she sees that Jan Han wants to kill her. But as she runs towards him and holds him, she uses her power to hold him down. Then he immediately cuts a part of his souls, and he escapes to another world as he leaves Qingsheng, who kneels down and vows to hunt him down and torture him for 1,000 years. Jan Han falls into another body in another world, and he becomes excited that he is not dead. Then he sees a lady who asks him why he is not dead, yet as she has poisoned the drink she gave him. But when Jan Han goes through the memory of the new body he has possessed, he learns that the owner of the body is also bearing his name, and the person had been poisoned by his childhood crush Lin Hu, who pushed him to steal medical prescriptions and tries to kill him afterwards. Lin Hu then tells Jian Han that she has to kill him to save her reputation, but a man comes to meet her and urges her on that she should kill Jian Han. Jian Han begins to run for his life and Lin Hu, and the man runs after him, but he notices that the body he has possessed is weak. Then he suddenly sees a lady on a horse, and she halts as she sees that he is being chased. The lady then asks him if he wants to die, but Jian Han stops, and he begins to admire the lady, but Lin Hu and the man running after Jian Han also stops. And as they see the lady, they recognizes her as Yang Ryuxu. Ryuxu asks them why they are fighting, as fights on the territory of the city is prohibited, and the man immediately tells her that Jan Han is a criminal as he has stolen the medical prescription, and they are chasing him so that he would admit his fault. Ryuxu turns to Jan Han, and she tells him that he is the infamous criminal. Then she tells him that his family had sent an army after him so that he would be punished, but Jan Han immediately begins to cry, and he tells Ryuxu that he was framed, and Lin Hu had told him to go and steal the prescription. He continues to tell her that he did everything for love, and they have tried to frame him, but the man suddenly tries to use his sword to stab Jan Han, but he is stopped by Ryuxu, who tells them that she would personally take Han to the house of the Jan family so that they would deal with it themselves. The man then informs Ryuxu that he had heard His Majesty wants her to marry his older brother, and when it happens, he would be able to be the prince's assistant. And he also adds that he hopes Ryuxu would not interfere with it, but Jan Han immediately tells him that Ryuxu would never marry his older brother. The man immediately tells Lin Hu that they should kill Jan Han, and they suddenly begin to generate their powers, but they are stopped by Ryuxu, who uses her power to form a shield for herself and Jan Han, and they become surprised as she is on the 3rd level of cultivation. The man asks Ryuxu why she is protecting Jan Han, but she immediately yells at them that they should leave. After they had left, Ryuxu tells Jian Han that she is going to take him to the Jian family house, and if they had framed him, she would help him to get the justice that he deserves, but Jian Han tells her that he has an idea that she can follow if she does not want to marry the man's older brother, and she immediately tells him that she wants to hear his idea. Ryuxu goes to meet her father and mother, and informs them that she wants to marry Jian Han, but her father becomes surprised, and he immediately asks why she wants to cancel her wedding with the prince and decide to marry a lowlife like Jian Han, but she immediately explains to him that her heart does not belong with the prince, and she also adds that it was Jian Han's idea that he had told her about them. Her mother tells her that she should not be like-minded, as wedding is very important in her life. Ryuxu tells her parents that the county government sent an army to get ready for the wedding, and they would be in town in 3 days, but she informs her father that he is the only person that can help her to cancel the wedding. Ryuksu's father also asks her why she has decided to marry Jeonhan, who is a man who does not know how to cultivate, and he tells her that he cannot accept the fact that he would be her husband, and she also tells him that she is not going to change her mind. Ryuksu's father then informs her that the royal palace would probably take over the west and the east part of the kingdom if she refuses to become the prince's wife, and on hearing this, Ryuksu begins to tell herself that she must save her family and her body as well. Jeonhan immediately enters, and he tells Ryuksu's father that he is going to protect his daughter at all cost. Then Ryuksu's father goes out to tell his sables that his daughter's engagement would take place the following day in the main palace of the city, and he tells them that he wants them to guard her. The men in the village begin to get jealous as the news has reached them that Ryuksu is planning to marry someone. Meanwhile, Jeonhan comes out of a hot spring, and he begins to admire how nice he is feeling, and he also wonders how a small city lord would have such a medicinal pool. Soon, a maid named Chyanger comes to meet Jeonhan, and she tells him that he should come out and put on his clothes, and as Jeonhan asks if it is his wedding clothes, Chyanger tells him to get ready in time because there would be a lot of dignified guests at the ceremony. At the ceremony, the guest begins to wonder who the bridegroom is, and Zhao, who is Ryuksu's cousin, comes out, and he begins to question the Zhang family on why Ryuksu is getting married to another man other than himself. The crowd also begins to murmur as they ask each other who the bridegroom is if Zhao En is already there with them. Then Zhao En begins to tell them that he is the most suitable person for her, as he has been in the army for more than 10 years, and he is supposed to be the one that would marry Ryuksu. Soon, Ryuksu's parents comes and Zhao En pays his homage. Then he tells them why he is angry, but they tell him that it was Ryuksu's decision to get married to another man, and they implore him to follow her wish, but he tells them that he has been working hard, and he feels that he is the only one suitable for Ryuksu. But as Zhao En tries to make a scene, Ryuksu comes, and she immediately confirms all what Zhao En has heard from her parents, that she tells him that he should be happy for her, and if he is not there to give his blessings, he should just go home. Ryuksu immediately tells the guards to take Zhao En out, but he immediately yells at the guards that they should not touch him. But as they continue to make noise, Jeonhan comes in, and he tells them that they did not allow him to rest at night. The crowd wonders why he is in a wedding cloth, which is the same as Ryuksu's dress, and he tells them that their noise has made him not to rest well, and it might affect his performance with Ryuksu at night. Jeonhan begins to flaunt himself in Zhao and immediately asks Ryuksu why Jeonhan is in a wedding dress, and he replies to Zhao En that he is the bridegroom, as they have all figured out. Then Ryuksu's father begins to tell Jeonhan that he should go back inside the mansion, but Han tells him that he is not going back as he cannot rest due to the noise Zhao En is making. Ryuksu also pleads with Jeonhan to go back to the house, but he ignores her and faces Zhao En to tell him that he should remember to bow to him anywhere they meet, as he does not care about the family Zhao En is from. Zhao En becomes angry, and he orders Jeonhan to get out of the house, as he is going to make him get out if he does not comply, but Han does not answer him, and as Zhao becomes angry, he tries to attack Han, but Ryuksu suddenly stops him, and she immediately tells Zhao En that Jeonhan is her husband, and she would stand against whoever tries to harm him. Jeonhan then tells Ryuksu that he can handle the situation, as he has promised to take care of her, and he immediately moves towards Zhao Han and tells him that they should make a bet. But after Zhao En had bet a sum of 10,000, Jeonhan immediately bets 7 pieces of yuanden, and everyone becomes surprised as they wonder how he could get such a priceless item. Jeonhan also opens the bet to everyone, and a lot of families begins to bet on Zhao En to win them later. Jeonhan tells Ryuksu's father to be the witness as they are about to start the fight, but Zhao En tells his soldiers that in the first round, anybody that can break Jeonhan's formation would be rewarded. The competition is about to begin, and Ryuksu becomes worried as Jeonhan is no match for Zhao En and his army, but Ryuksu sees that there are some soldiers behind Jeonhan as well, and her father tells her that he was the one that ordered the soldier to go and help Jeonhan. Soon the fight starts, and Zhao En and his soldiers do a long snake array move, which is known as the killer method faced by opponents, and the crowd begins to tell each other that Jeonhan cannot survive the attack. But suddenly, Jeonhan uses another kind of formation as well. After his own formation, Jeonhan uses a 10-strike method, which makes everyone surprised. As he uses it, then Ryuksu tells herself that it is not possible for Jeonhan to have such method up his sleeve, as the method has been missing for a long time. As Zhao En sees an opening in Jeonhan's formation, he tries to enter the formation in order to defeat Jeonhan and his soldiers, but he is caught up in the middle, and Zhao En immediately changes his formation to an array of snake formations. The guests become surprised as Jeonhan is pulling off the formations he is doing, and they begin to yell as they are scared of losing the money they had bet on Zhao En. Ryuksu immediately tells them that the formation Jeonhan is making is not the long array of snake formation, but the Royal Dragon Array. Then she explains further that the formation is also a 10-strike method, and it is known for its offensive. Jian Han begins to tell himself that the Lucian collection he had read with Yan Qingsheng was not in vain, and due to the Royal Dragon Array. Zhao Wan and his soldiers find themselves surrounded by Jian Han's soldiers, while Jian Han points his sword at Zhao Wan, which makes him wins the round automatically. Jian Han is announced as the winner of the first game, and a member of the Dun family beats up his son for making them lose their money, but Jian Han ignores them while the man immediately goes to his knees and tells Ruxu's father that he has accepted a good son-in-law. Meanwhile, Zhao Wan becomes angry, and he begins to beat up one of his soldiers and yells that he wants to start the second game so that he would be able to kill Jian Han and cut his head off, but Jian Han takes the money given to him by the Sun family and tells them that the gifts, which includes money and books of martial arts, would be regarded as gifts for them. Zhao Wan comes to call Jian Han for the next round, but he tells him that he is not in a hurry as he need to ask his mother-in-law something. Then he goes to meet Ruxu's mother and asks her if the remaining 2 games should continue as Zhao Wan is her nephew, and if Zhao Wan continues the remaining games, he would not be able to leave the battlefield. But she tells him that they should continue with their decisions and they should not mind her. Zhao then brings out his 10-stone bow, and he also orders the guards to throw a huge stone in the sky while he shoots at it, and after he shoots it, he then tells Jian Han that he would kneel and call him his grandfather if he is able to shoot his 10-stone arrow. Zhao An immediately throws the bow at Jian, and as he catches it, he begins to admire it, and he suddenly pulls the bow, and he ends up breaking it. Then he turns to Zhao Wan and tells him that he has won, and he also calls on Ruxu and tells her that they already have grandchildren even before their marriage. Zhao Wan behind to tell us he tells Jian Han that he is cheating, and in order to prove his innocence, he tells the guards that they should give him a 15-stone bow, and everyone becomes surprised, as the bow is so strong and heavy that it takes 4 guards to carry it to Jian Han. Jian Han collects the bow, and he shoots 3 arrows at once, and when they confirm that the 3 arrows meet his target, they declare him the winner of the second round. The people begins to insult Zhao Wan for losing to Jian Han, and Zhao Wan becomes furious, and he yells at Jian Han that he would be the one to marry Ruxu, but Jian Han immediately shoots an arrow at his genital like he had promised him before. Then Zhao Wan becomes more furious, and he immediately dashes at Jian Han, but he is stopped as Jian Han uses his power to form a shield for himself. The people become scared as they wonder how a 2nd grade can beat up a 9th grade fighter. Then Ruxu begins to panic as she yells at Zhao Wan that he should leave Jian Han, but they are all shocked when they see as Zhao Wan falls to the ground, but he immediately stands up again to attack Jian Han. The two begins to fight, but Jian Han beats up Zhao Wan, and after his 2nd strike, Zhao Wan falls down, and the people begins to wonder how it is possible for someone as useless as Jian Han to beat up a warlord like Zhao Wan. Jian Han walks up to Zhao Wan, who is still conscious, and he steps on his face and asks him if he understands how he is able to defeat him. Then he immediately removes his robe to reveal some markings on his back, and when Zhao Wan sees it, he immediately recognizes it as broken veins. Jian Han immediately uses his leg to stomp Zhao Wan's head and kills him. Then Ruxu runs to meet him, and he asks her if they can continue with their wedding ceremony. Few minutes later, Jian Han and Ruxu becomes married, and they go to their chambers, and Jian Han begins to admire what is in the house, but Ruxu asks him why he is forgiving, as she was impressed by what he did. Then she also tells him that the Zhao family and Lin family would be after him with what he has done, but he immediately pulls her closer to himself, and he explains some things to her, which justifies his action towards killing Zhao Wan. Ruxu then thanks Jian Zhao for helping her out, and she tells him that he has to stay in the palace for a year, and after that she can tell her father to pay him off, which would make him go to wherever he wants to go to. But as she is about to leave, Jian Han pushes her on the bed, and he tells her that they should enjoy their wedding night together. As Jian Han is about to jump on Ruxu, she immediately stands up and tells him that she cannot do what he is expecting her to do. Then Jian Han tries to convince her, but she tells him that she would send Sandra to come and serve him, and as Sandra comes in, Ruxu leaves. Jian Han tells Sandra that he would be gentle with her. Then he immediately begins to help her cultivate, and they cracked ice throughout the night. The following morning, Jian Han becomes warmed out, and when he meets Ruxu, she immediately misunderstands what had happened the previous night between him and Sandra, that she tells him that he has to meet with her parents. On getting to the meeting, Ruxu's father tells him that as he has entered their family, they would protect and shield him, and her mother tells Jian Han that she sees as he is showing love to her daughter, and she hopes to get a grandson from them sooner or later. And Jian Han assures her that they are working on it. Jian Han also tells Ruxu's father that he has heard the news that the people of the county government may visit them soon. Then Ruxu asks her father what he is going to do, but he tells her that it is not easy for the royal family to attack the Yan family. Ruxu also informs him that there is a brother of the royal highness in the team, But her father tells her that as long as the brother does not make any excessive requests, they would give him anything he asks, and Jian-han asks why they would do if the brother's demands are too much. Ruxu's mother then asks Jian-han if he has an idea, but he tells them that he has no idea, as they would follow his father-in-law's idea. And if it is not working, they would kill the brother of the royal highness. Ruxu's father disagrees with Jian-han, but he asks him if he would be happy if they took his daughter away. And he replies Jian-han by asking what they can do. Then Jian-han tells them that he has a 3-loop method to kill the royal highness brother. Jian-han immediately hands a book to Ruxu's father and tells him that he should practice the set of skills in the book with the quenching body pulse, as it has great effects. That he also adds that he would arrange the remaining rings. Ruxu takes Jian-han to where their soldiers are assembled, and she tells him to pick the ones he wants, but he tells her that he wants to pick only 30 of them. Then Ruxu asks him if she should introduce them with their combat abilities, but he tells her that he is not looking at their combat abilities. Jian-han then tells the men that they are facing a huge and extremely dangerous battle, which is for the betterment of their city. Then the men responded by hooting. He also adds that he would propose a condition, and anyone who is not fine with it should leave. Then he begins as he asks them if anyone knows about temperament, and the soldiers become shocked. But a soldier, who is said to be the weakest of them, tells Jian-han that he knows it. The man called Luo Sheng comes out to the stage, and then Jian-han also asks if there is any transsexual, and another soldier named Du Weilang comes out, and soon Jian-han begins to call other ridiculous conditions, and he is eventually able to gather 30 soldiers. Ruxu asks him why he has chosen such soldier to go and face the great master Dipan. Then he tells her that they would use the remaining 5 hours to train, and the soldiers would naturally know how to kill before evening. The remaining soldiers that were not picked begins to ask and wonder why Jian-han had chosen weak soldiers to fight, while the strong ones are left behind. But Ruxu interrupts them and sends them to go back to their work, and she also instructs them to double their tasks. In the evening, the little prince enters the city with Kui Heng, and the little prince have a conversation with Kui Heng regarding his marriage to Ruxu, and he also tells Kui Heng that he wants the Yan family to pay a price. Ruxu and her father goes to meet the little prince and his entourage at the entrance of their house. Then the little prince checks Ruxu out, and he tells her that he would have loved for her to be his sister-in-law, but they already heard that she is married. Soon they escort the prince and Kui Heng to the dining room to eat, and as Yan Chong comes in with his wife and daughter, the little prince looks at Ruxu and her mother. Then he immediately tells Lord Yancheng that he has a beautiful wife and daughter, and Lord Yancheng becomes angry as he already sees that Jian-han is right about the little prince. Soon the little prince asked about Jian-han, and he sends someone to call him, and he tells Lord Yancheng that he wants to see him, and when Jian-han comes, the little prince compliments his skin, and he also begins to tell himself that he is not worthy of the beautiful Ruxu. The little prince then informs them that he is there because he wants to raise his country, and his father has a condition that the city's main palace must agree to. Lord Yancheng asks what the conditions are, and when the prince tells him the conditions, he immediately tells him that he has to think about the offer. But the little prince tells him that he must not take long to consider it. The little prince then asks Lord Yancheng if his wife and daughter could serve him while he continues to think about the offer from the king. But Lord Yancheng becomes furious, but Jian-han immediately taps him and tells the little prince that he can look for 2 ladies to keep his company, and he would not necessarily have to bother his wife and his mother-in-law. But the little prince insists and tells him that he is actually going to sleep with them. Jian-han tells the little prince that he is not going to let them go in peace, and the little prince replies him that he would consider letting them go if Jian-han and his father-in-law, Yancheng, stay in the hall while playing a musical instrument for him. Jian-han also asks him if he is not scared that they would rebel against him, but he tells him that as the little prince, he is not scared, as they would not dare to do anything to him. Then Jian-han summons his soldiers, and they come in with some body parts of the little prince's soldiers, and it makes the little prince shocked as he sees what the soldiers are holding. The little prince becomes angry, and he immediately tells Kui Heng that he should defeat Yancheng, but as Kui Heng rushes towards Yancheng, Yancheng immediately uses his new cultivated skill to resist Kui Heng. Then Jian-han explains to them, but the little prince threatens Jian-han that he would torture him and make him witness when he is having fun with his wife, so that he would learn not to disobey the royal household. And the little prince also tells him that Kui Heng would defeat and kill them all, but Jian-han tells Kui Heng that he should check his palm, and when he checks his palm, he realizes that he has been poisoned. Then he begins to wonder as he has not eaten or taken anything, but Jian-han tells him that they have poisoned the air, and it could only affect him. Jianhan also adds that the poison would reduce his strength and make him weak later, but Quiheng tells him that with his weak strength, he would still be able to defeat his father-in-law. But Jianhan tells him that he is not fighting with his father-in-law anymore. Jianhan suddenly calls out 10 soldiers and Quiheng laughs at him as he tells him that he is going to defeat the soldiers. Quiheng immediately uses his powers against the 10 soldiers, but the 10 soldiers use a formation, which makes them line up in a straight line. But Ruxu immediately tells Jianhan that the soldiers would be defeated, but he tells her that they would be okay. Quiheng suddenly notices that the 10 soldiers can resist him, and he begins to wonder how they can do that. As he asks out loud, then Jianhan explains how he has fortified them by putting them in a barrel filled with medicinal solution. The little prince also becomes surprised, and he asks himself how the soldiers are able to resist Quiheng. Then Quiheng sees that there is a way he can defeat the soldiers, and he tries to break their formation, but the soldiers use their shields to hit him, and he falls to the ground. Soon, Jianhan also introduces another gift, and one of his soldiers beats the drum as they all go outside. Then another set of soldiers comes to attack Quiheng, but he uses his body protection has to push the soldiers away from himself, and the little prince begins to get excited. Jianhan then tells Quiheng that they still have more gifts for him, and soon the arena floor becomes checked like a chess game. Then Jianhan tells his wife and her parents that they should go and sit down, and as they leave, Jianhan tells Quiheng that the whole space is filled with traps, and as he moves, he is suddenly hit by a series of hammers, but he uses his Grandmaster Dippin power to hold the hammers as they fall on top of each other. When the last hammer is about to hit Quiheng, Jianhan tells him that the main gift was the last hammer, and as the hammer hits him, Quiheng begins to hallucinate, and the little prince goes to meet him, while Jianhan goes to sit with his family, and he asks his wife if she is not angry. After eating few fruits, Jianhan stands up, and he tells Quiheng that he still has a final gift for him, and immediately, some soldiers rushes towards Quiheng, and he uses his power to push them away. Then they notice that he is wounded, and the little prince in Yancheng begins to wonder how Theory soldiers were able to wound the great master Naiteng, and Jianhan goes to meet Quiheng and asks him if he is satisfied with the gifts of seniors and juniors, but Quiheng tells him that he has killed countless enemies in his life. Quiheng begins to commend Jianhan, but he suddenly tries to attack him, but Jianhan uses a secret weapon to defeat him, but Jianhan gets weak, and he falls down. Then Ruxu goes to meet him and asks him if he is okay, and he tells her that he is okay. Jianhan then stands up and picks up a sword and walks towards the little prince. Then he tells the little prince that he is going to kill him for trying to hurt his wife and her mother. But the little prince also takes a sword and tries to attack Jianhan, but Jianhan effortlessly injures him. Soon they give some treasures to the little prince as they escort him out of their city. Then Jianhan tells Yancheng that the little prince would be attacked on his way, and all the treasures he has made away with would be collected from him. Yancheng comes to meet Jianhan and commends him for making a big contribution for their family. Then he tells them that he is part of the family already, and he has no choice but to help. Ruxu's mother then comes to meet Jianhan, and she tells him that he is amazing for using 30 soldiers to defeat the little prince, and she also asks him the kind of reward he wants from them. Jianhan tells his in-laws that he wants to go to the Black Rock Mountains to get an antidote for himself, as he has used a forbidden technique on Quiheng, but Yancheng tells him that the mountain is too dangerous, as there are many monsters and gangsters there, but he tells them that he has to go. Ruxu tells Jianhan that she would follow him, but he tells her that she has to wait to take care of the city, and he also hands her 2 martial books, as he tells her that one is for her and the other is for the general lieutenant. She then tells him that she would be with him if he comes back to the city safely, as it is possible for him to lose his life on the mountain. As Jianhan sets to go to the mountain, Ruxu and Cyanter bids him farewell, and soon Jianhan begins to talk to himself. As he begins to look around, then he is suddenly faced with the red flame Gale Leopard, and he immediately tells himself that he has to practice the derivative combat skills of the 7, returning to the sword of Xuanhuang Zhouju. Jianhan begins to recount the steps to use a special technique he can use to defeat the leopard, and he continues to fight with the leopard. Jianhan begins to use his knives, and he counts up to 300 knives before he can defeat the leopard, and when he gains victory over the leopard, he immediately removes the stone in the leopard's eyes, as he tells himself that the elemental core he just took is big. Jianhan immediately cultivates using the elementary core, and he notices that the dead ghost of the body he possessed lives in the bloodline of the ancient dragon. Then he tells himself that he would improve on his own strength and look for the elixir to stabilize his soul, so that he would be able to practice the 7th return to the sword, as his basic knife technique is as good as it is. Jianhan begins to continue his journey, then he is suddenly attacked by some arrows, and as he dodges them, he falls down and begins to yell as he asks who is with him in the forest. but he gets no answer. Jan Han then tells again, as he tells the person to come out so that he can know who the person is. Then a man comes out and he tells Jan Han that he is not bad, as only the Jupin realm can escape his soul-chasing arrow. Then he also adds that he is not the kind of waste they said he is. Jan Han then asks the man if he is from Haifengjai, and the man tells him that it is true, and he is the old Nine Butcher of the master of the 9 villages of Haifeng village. Then Jan Han begins to remember all that he has read about in the Black Mountain Experience guide that his father-in-law had given to him. Jan Han then asks Ju Dangdang if he is in the mountain for him, and Dangdang commends Jan Han for being so smart, and he also informs him that he was instructed to take Jan Han's head, and Jan Han mind asks him who has ordered him, as he is the leader of the Haifeng village, and he also thinks about it and asks Dangdang if he is sent by the Lin or Zhang family. Dangdang immediately uses his sword to attack Jan Han, but he dodges it, and he tells himself that his beautiful wife would be widowed if the sword hits him. But Jan Han sees that he cannot defeat the strong Dangdang, and he decides to escape. As Jan Han begins to run from Dangdang, he immediately jumps off, and Dangdang uses his bow and arrow, but Jan Han uses his sword to ward off the arrows. Then Dangdang follows Jan Han as he runs until they reach a place, and they are both faced with a giant thunderbird. But as Dangdang tries to shift the thunderbird's attention to Jan Han, he notices that Jan Han is gone. Jan Han runs away as he sees that Dangdang is busy with the thunderbird, and as he begins to go, he sees another monster, and he asks himself if he is too attractive, that he is being attacked by beasts. Jan Han begins to run away from the bear, and he mistakenly enters a valley, but he notices that the bear does not follow him, and he immediately figures that the bear cannot enter the valley. Jan Han decides that he would practice another skill, but as he cultivates the skill, he begins to sway his sword and tries to practice, but he is interrupted by a mighty figure that he immediately identifies as the Armoire's Emperor Dragon. Jan Han begins to watch the dragon, and he notices that there is a woman in front of the dragon who yells at the dragon that the dragon has broken the Bloodblade Treaty, and she also adds that she would be the law enforcement officer of the Bloodblade Alliance. But Jan Han watches in amazement as he begins to wonder if the dragon can actually be signed in a treaty, and he also asks himself why he has not heard of the alliance before. Then he notices that the lady suddenly raises her sword, and he tries to see why would happen after. The dragon and the lady begins to fight, and Jan Han watches from where he is hiding, and he begins to comment on the moods and techniques the lady is using, but he suddenly sees that the lady is knocked down by the dragon. He begins to run for his life, as he not that the dragon is too powerful as it can still fight after the lady had removed one of its eye. Then he also sees that the lady has been injured. Jan Han sees that the girl is strong as well, and as she stands up, he sees the mark of life on her forehead. But as he turns to go, the lady yells as she asks who is with her. Then Jan Han tells himself that he has been found out. As Jan Han tries to turn, he suddenly hears a loud splash. Then he notices that the lady has fainted, and he begins to think if he should go and save her, as she may die if he does not save her, and she may decide to kill him if he saves her. He immediately decides that he would save her, and as he carries her out of the water, he tells himself that he can't watch a beautiful lady like her die. Then he lays her on the ground. Jan Han jumps into the water as he decides to get the treasure of the dragon before the lady wakes up. Then he brings out the treasures and makes a fire to make the lady warm. Then he decides to tend to her wounds, but as he is about to treat her wounds, the lady pinches him unconsciously, and he immediately runs from her. And he also tells himself that he is a family man, and he does not want to betray his wife. Jan Han decides to cultivate, and he immediately notices that he has broken through to the 6th-ranked Tongmai realm, and he did not expect that his ancestral vein awakening would have much benefits for him. He continued to admire his newfound powers and his wings as well, but he immediately puts the winds back in as he tells himself that his wife would be scared to see him the way he was before. But as he controlled Celebrate, he tells himself that he has to check up on the lady sleeping. As Jan Han turns, he suddenly sees the lady right behind him, and as he gets shocked, he asks her when she has been awake. The lady immediately begins to accuse Zhang Han of checking her back, but Zhang Han tells her that he has a wife, and he knows the lady likes him, but he is to tell his wife if he can take in a concubine. But the lady immediately slaps him hard. She tells him that he should get dressed, and while he is dressing, she asks him what his name is, and after he tells her his name, he asks her what her own name is, but she tells him that it is not important. The lady then asks Zhang Zhao if he would like to join the Bloodblade Alliance, but he tells her that he does not know what the alliance is all about. She begins to explain to him, but after her explanation, he tells her that he would join the alliance. He also adds that he would not join the Inner Sapel as he likes his freedom, but she tells him that it is not easy to join the inner organization. Then she explains further about the inner organization, and she eventually tells him to go and register in one of the branches of the organization to be a member. Jan Han suddenly notices that the lady has gone, and as she leaves, he begins to admire the talisman on his hand, and he leaves the valley, but as he gets outside, he sees the violent bear waiting patiently for him. Jiang Han tames the bear and he leaves to complete his other quests. But after the 4th day, he despises to go back home, but as he begins to go, he suddenly hears some men talking about him in the forest, and he stops to listen. Then he learns that the men has been instructed to kill him, and he becomes more furious when he hears them talking all about Ruxu, his wife. He immediately reveals himself to the men, and he begins to fight with them, but as he is about to kill one of them, he tells Jian Han that their master has recruited 100 people to form 10 teams so that they would be able to defeat and capture Jiang Han. On hearing this, Jian Han immediately grins, and he tells himself that the hunt has just begun. Jiang Han tells the man to shoot the signal that he has been found so that he would be able to lure the remaining team of 10 to him. Then after the team begins to run towards where they had seen the signal, they begin to talk about how they have ambushed Yan Ruxuith, and Jiang Han comes out of his hiding, and he tells them not to mess with any of his family. As the men explain what had happened, Jiang Han learns that they have used him as bait for his wife. Then he becomes more furious, and he kills all of the soldiers. Meanwhile, Yan Ruxu takes some soldiers with her and she tries to fight the people in Haifeng as she swears that she would protect and take Jian Han home. The people tries to talk to Ruxu that she should not fight for Jiang Han as he is a traitor of the Jiang family, but she tells them that it is none of their business as he is her husband. But a man tells her that they have 300 soldiers and she would not stand a chance with them, but as the man dashes towards her, she begins to fight with them. A man yells at the soldiers that they should not injure Ruxu's perfect skin as the big soldiers have to enjoy her, and he also tells Ruxu that they would send her to meet her husband in hell after they have forced her father to hand over the Lord's seal. As the men continue to talk to Ruxu, they suddenly notice someone, and when he moves closer to them, they see that it is Jian Han, and Ruxu becomes happy as she tells him that she thought he was dead. Soon he begins to fight with the men that tried to kill his wife, but they all become surprised as they notices that his cultivation level has increased as they see him in a new form with wings. Then they all recognizes the dragon power in him, but while Jiang Han was fighting with the men, Ruxu tries to go and help him, but she is immediately captured by the master, who begins to threaten Jiang Han with her life. The man tells Jiang Han that he would repay the Zhang family's favor to him as they had helped him. Then Ruxu yells at Jiang Han to tell him that they are after the Lord City seal. Then the man pushes her off the cliff, but Jiang Han immediately catches her, and as he puts her down, he goes to fight the man, and as they begin to fight, the man resists all of Jiang Han's techniques, and he suddenly pushes him to the floor. Jiang Han stands up, but Ruxu immediately stands in front of him and yells at the man that she commands him to stop fighting with Jiang Han, but the man does not listen, and as Jiang Han stands up to the man, he uses a special technique on the man and he defeats him. Ruxu takes Jiang Han and her horse, but he cannot sit well on the horse as he teases his wife, asking her if she has accepted him, but she tells him that he is a rascal. Then he also complains her riding skills. When they get to the house, Ruxu immediately instructs Xiander that she should take care of Jiang Han as she is going to see her father, and she also instructs him to rest and treat himself. But as Qiang Han and Xiander walks together, he instructs Xiander to make a furnace for him so that he would heal himself after he had told her not to sleep in his bed. Jiang Han heals himself and he unlocks a soul travel skill, and as he tests it, his soul travels away from his normal body, and he checks on Xiander, who is asleep, but he immediately leaves the room as he tells himself that Xiander is driving him crazy. He also decides to check up on Ruxu, but he finds her in a library reading a book, which makes him surprised as he does not know that Ruxu reads such books. Jian goes to see if Ruxu is asleep, and he sees that she is reading a yellow book. She immediately notices it is getting late, and she decides to go in, but Jian decides to keep following her. He sees that his spiritual power is not enough, and he immediately disappears. He suddenly wakes up in his room and sees Stander staring at him, and she thinks he had an accident, and he notices that he was almost close to looking at Ruxu. Changer then asks him if he is angry with her and begs for his forgiveness. He forgives her and tells her that she is not allowed to wear clothes in the future, and she becomes surprised at what he said and wonders why. The following day, Ruxu comes to him and agrees to follow him to Zhang's house. He immediately remembers an incident that happens in their house and remembers that his sister has informed him that she is the only one allowed to beat him, but he tells her that her beating is more painful. In the carriage, Ruxu briefs him on the news, and he sees that it is good and tells her that they need to grow up as soon as possible, seeing the two internal problems will be removed as soon as possible. After their discussion, he asks her why they did not take a horse as her riding skills are good, but she tells him to shut up. They arrive at their destination and Ruxu tells him that if they do not accept him, he can go back with her with ease. She also promises him to be his family member as long as her Yan family does not fail. Jianhan goes in and begins to hear the comment from the people, and he immediately ignores them and promises to take care of the old matter. He then meets the head of the family, who immediately begins to chastise him for his actions of stealing the family medicine and marrying the city lord's daughter. They then decide to punish him, but Ruxu tells them that he is a member of their family, and whoever tries to move him will have to become an enemy of the Yan family. They try to explain the gravity of Jiang Han's offense to her and inform her that the family law must be implemented. They begin to question his marriage, and he demands for it his father, who immediately shows up and tells them that he is satisfied with the marriage. His father comes out and also asks for his daughter-in-law, and they both greet Jiang Han's father. He informs Ruxu how lucky Jiang Han is to have her in his life, as she is so beautiful, and she thanks him for the compliment. His sister immediately drags him, and he tells his sister that he has come back to see her after not seeing her in a very long time. She notices that he has learned to talk smoothly, and she immediately sees how he managed to marry such a beautiful wife. She immediately tells him that she will cover him up no matter what, even if their father finds fault in him. She also promises to beat him up and warns him not to get too excited. Suddenly, Jiang's father's second brother immediately tells him that he should not forget about the theft of the formula, even if he agrees to the marriage. They begin to demand an explanation from him, and Jiang Han's sister immediately promises to give them whatever response they want. They tell her that it is a matter of rules and ask her if she wants to break the rule. She tells them that she could care less, but warns them not to touch him as she will have them killed if they do so. Jiang Han's father then asks his brother if he wants to turn his back on his family, but he reminds his brother that it is not about family, but he must be punished, and asks him to give up his position as head of the family. They then begin to plot a coup against him, and Jiang Han notices that he is willing to be the Jiang's dog and hand him over to their master. They inform them that they have a partnership with the Zhang family and threaten him to give up his position as head or they will send him to meet his dead wife. They begin to plan to attack them, and Jiang Han sees that he came back to resolve the conflict and notices that things have become easier. Jiang Han sees that it is better to kill than to resolve conflicts, and they begin to look down on him, saying that he is too weak to take on all of them combined. His sister notices that he has improved, and his father immediately tells him to stand back as he is no match for them. Jiang Han immediately orders them to stay at his back, as he does not have an issue with all of them, but he has a plan. They try to attack him, but Jiang Han immediately uses his blade to injure his son, and they all become surprised. His father tries to warn him that Jiang Han is hiding his strength, but he ignores his father and goes to attack him once again despite missing one arm. Jiang immediately tells him that he has been given a chance before, but he should not be blamed for what happens next, and he immediately kills his son. His father becomes angry and attacks Jiang Han, and he notices how powerful a force it is, and his sister goes to his aid and asks him if he is okay after being taken down. Jiang begins to cough, and a bounty of 10,000 gold coins is being placed on Jiang's head for whoever kills him, but he stops them altogether with the help of his sister. They become surprised on seeing that he has the ancestral dragon bloodline and realize that it is not a myth. They all begin to wonder how he was able to do it, and Jiang's father immediately promises them that if they step back, he will forget what they have done. The warriors immediately notice that they are guilty, and Jiang notices that the dragon bloodline has a very high status in his family. His father's brother immediately begins to worry about his son's life and wonders how someone like Jiang could awaken the family's supreme dragon. He then challenges him to see how strong the family dragon is, and they go into a duel. Jiang notices how strong and fast he is, and he immediately begins to evade his attacks. His sister immediately binds him to prevent him from killing his brother, and Jiang sees that his sister is very strong. Jiang's sister takes out their father's brother, and Jiang asks them to bury him. His father tells them to respect him, since he has been loyal to their family for a long time. His father immediately tells Ruxu that he did not have any issues with Jiang joining the Yan clan, but seeing he has awakened the ancestral dragon bloodline, he cannot let him go easily. Ruxu misunderstands him, and he explains to her further by telling her that if she has two sons, one must be called the Jiang family name, while the second must be called her name. Jiang comes in and tells his father that he is going back to work, and he begins to talk with Ruxu about it, and his sister comes to take his dad in as he has been out for too long, and the poison is not gone yet. Jiang Han immediately asks his father how he got poisoned, and his father tells him that he was poisoned by Viper, who is the leader of the Black Wind Fort, but managed to escape, or he would have died in his hands. Jiang gets angry at them, but his father warns him about Viper and his 8 brothers. Jiang informs his father not to worry, as the brothers are now 6, since he has killed a lot of them, and his father begins to wonder when his son became so powerful. He immediately drags his father to the pharmacy as he could cure him, and asks his wife to come with him, but she refuses. Jiang Han's sister begins to question Ruxu, and she notices that she does not know more about her family lineage, and she immediately tells he about her family and fears they will come looking for Ruxu, judging from their constitution. She then warns her that nothing must happen to her brother, but Ruxu tells her that nothing will happen as he is her husband, and she will not let harm come to him. Ruxu immediately leaves and his sister gets information that she is needed back by the emperor, and they fear they might be a problem at the border. He also warns her not to say a word about what he saw about the Yuan family, and he notices that she has grown even more powerful. Zhang immediately heals his father, and he noticed that his cultivation has returned, and he immediately begins to hand him a lot of techniques and formulas that will be useful to him. His sister also hands him a gift too, and she tells him that she will be okay to go back to the capital, seeing that Hanner is capable. Zhang notices that she is leaving and immediately tells her that he cannot let go of her. He immediately asks her if she does not want to satisfy him, but she tells him to regret it till she gets back. She begins to go and tells her servant that her world is too lonely, and she will not pull him in. Zhang Han sees that the Zhang family and the Lin family are ready to settle their scores, and he decides to go. Meanwhile, the Zhang family begins to sell their medicinal herbs, and the other families begin to wonder how they got so much medicinal herbs to sell to the people. They immediately begin to decide on the move they will make to be on a good side with the Zhang family before the Zhang family make a move. Suddenly, Zhang comes in and asks them if they are having a headache about the pills, and they become surprised to see him. He comes in and instructs them to ask his son whatever they need to know, seeing he studied in the best university, and he has attained the Tongmai realm. Zhang's son immediately tells them that he has a plan to bring down the Zhang family and it can wipe them out totally. Meanwhile, Zhang Han begins to train his soldiers and he tells them that anyone that cannot finish will be at his training in the night, and they all become scared. Suddenly, one of the spies come to inform him that the Zhang and Lin family plans have started, as they have started to buy various pills under different identities, and Zhang thinks about it and sees that his next plan for the Black Dragon army must be delayed. He also sees that he has spent a lot of money and the soldiers have not reached the 9th grade, and he begins to wonder if they are so useless. He immediately orders his soldiers into extra training and plans to take the chance, since the Zhang and Lin families have the guts. The Zhang families stick to their plans and are looking for a way to make Zhang Han make the trip himself, and they plan to send an invitation to Ruxu for their dinner. Zhang Han immediately passes by the people, and they begin to talk about him getting married to a beautiful wife and how smart he is as a king and a ruler. His soldier talks to him about the rumors, but he tells him to ignore all they have said, and he will know what happens to people that offend him. Zhang then goes to see his father-in-law, and he tells them that he was afraid that he will be upset on seeing him, and his mother-in-law tells him not to worry about his father-in-law. His father-in-law gets angry at him for the amount of money he spent on training the soldiers in a month, and informs him that he would have not agreed if it was not for his daughter. His father-in-law then asks him what he plans to do about the Zhang and Lin families, and asks him if he can also handle the Black Wind Fortress. He then tells him not to worry about the plan, and he informs him on what he plans on doing, and his father gives him some amount of money to spend on his own, and warns him not to spend it all. Ruxu then agrees to fight alongside him with an army, but Han refuses his offer and tells him that Ruxu does not need to fight. Han then demands for 500 men together with his dragon army and promises to show his father-in-law what he got after he spent so much money. They then decide to leave, and Ruxu immediately asks what she can do for her, and he asks her to give him a baby. She immediately asks him to be serious, and he tells her that there is something else, and suddenly a messenger comes in with the invitation letter from Zhang, and he tells her that he wants to go. He then explains his plans for her and drags her along as he tells her that he has a dress for her. At the banquet, Zhang begins to show the people a trick, and they begin to ask him if it is true about his plans to win Ruxu over to him, and he tells them that it is true, as she cannot be with Zhang, who he sees as trash. Suddenly, Zhang comes in and insults them, telling them that they are all eating shit, and they get angry at him and wonder what he is doing in their banquet. Ruxu comes in, and Zhang notices the daughter of Li Hongxi, and she warns him to leave if he doesn't want any trouble. Zhang then takes his sword and cuts her on her face and tells her that she deserves it, and they all become surprised. Zhang Qin then challenges him for killing Shanju and promises that he will not go free. Zhang then threatens him, and they begin to mock him and call him names, and they are ordered to bring him down. Zhang begins to beat them up and kill them. He tells them that their poetry sucks, and he will teach them a rhyme, and he tells them to remember it well. They then asks him why he snuck up on them, and he tells them that he was saying a lot of nonsense, so there is need for it. Zhang sees that Zhang is not so useless, and immediately asks Ruxu if there is any misunderstanding between them, as it is not right for her husband to ruin the show. Zhang immediately sees how his wife has defended him, and tells Zhang that he has a gift for him, and he hopes he will be satisfied. He tells him that he has sent all his beauties to their soldiers' camp, as they will be too much for him, and Zhang becomes very angry at him. His brother immediately launches an attack on him, and promises that he will never walk out of the building, and Zhang Han begins to dodge his attacks, and immediately asks him if he wants to stand up for his brother. Jiang then warns him to think about his decision, seeing that he has a second grace pulse, and he ignores and uses his family's signature move on him, but Jiang Han immediately uses his hands to catch his attack, and he then attack him back, and they begin to wonder how he was able to do that, as it is not possible. Jiang Han then asks him if he hit him too hard, and Zhang begins to threaten him not to do anything else to his brother, or he will have him killed. Jiang Han see that they are not going to stop, and he then matches Hai brother head, killing him instantly. They suddenly become silent, and Zhang brother's fiancée immediately tries to attack Han, but Ruxu steps in front of him and slaps her, telling her that if she wants to get to her husband, she will have to go through her. She then asks Ruxu if she is supporting her husband to kill, and she tells her that she is not talking to her as the daughter of the city lord, but it's Han's wife, and if she doesn't like it, she should forget. They notice that she is in 7th grade, and Jiang tells his wife that she is getting good at pretending and sees her as the essence of him. Jiang sees that Pioxu City is a city of strength, therefore he will not be able to leave the city, and he begins to show him the real power of Zhang. Jiang begins to mock him and insult him for just being a master at the age of 22. He also shows them that he is at the 6th pulse, and they begin to see how he was able to defeat Heng so easily. Heng's fiancée begins to wonder if she has chosen the wrong place, and she immediately sees that the Zheng family will be useful to her, and she tells her brother that she will go and fight him. A3 blocks her from going to meet him, and she begins to cry, and he starts to console her. Zheng then makes a joke about him having an affair with his brother's wife, and Zhang becomes very angry at him, and he blows him, and Jiang Han continues to mock him. Zhang tries to attack him again, but the owner of the venue comes in and stops him, telling them to take their fight outside, and tells him to repair the floorboards that he has damaged. Jiang Han begins to mock him, and he asks Ruxu about the elder, and begins to wonder why he has helped him. Zhang then decides to leave and tells Jiang Han that he is lucky, and he will soon know what happens when he messes with the Zhang family. Heng's fiancée then watches them in rage and plans that they will see her pain one day. Jiang Han thanks Siko, and he tells Han that they are from the same blood alliance, and there is no need to thank him. Jiang tells him that he did not think there will be any member of an alliance that will come to help him, and Ruxu begins to wonder when her husband became a part of an alliance, and she watches him as he continues to catch up with him. And Han then asks Siko if he can see his wound and thinks maybe he can cure him. Siko then rejects his offer, and he immediately tells him that there is no need as his brothers are not coming back, and he tries to lure the master to joining him, but he tells Jiang that if he has it figured out, he should come see him at the Yan compound. Ruxu then asks Jiang Han if he is sure that Shemin will come, and he tells her that she cannot guarantee him, but in 10 days or 6 days, he will definitely come. She then asks him why, and he tells her to give him a kiss, and he will tell her. She becomes furious and begins to walk away, but he tells her that he will tell her, but next time, he has to give him a kiss before he answers anything. He goes ahead to tell her what she wants to hear. Meanwhile, Zhang goes to report about the death of his brother to their father, and he apologizes for not being able to protect him. His father then becomes very angry and tells him to prepare everyone for the attack. Jiang Han continues to practice the Xuanhuan creation technique, and on the 4th day, Xiang comes in and asks him if he has broken through. He tells her that he will have to rely on her if he does not succeed, even though he cannot help it. He then tells her that he would have loved to help, but he is shocked because she doesn't even know what is going on. Jiang Han then tells her to do something for him, as he plans to gift the Zhang and Lin families a gift before they go to war. Miss Lin passes through the city, and the people continue to gossip about her, saying that she has a disease, and she ignores them all. At the Zhang mansion, she goes to see Feng, and she tells him that she is sure he must have heard the rumors, and she is sure he will misunderstand her. Feng immediately slaps her, as she has been hiding it from her, but she tells him that it is Jiang Han that is spreading the rumors about her, and he hits her again, stating that he cannot believe her, as he thinks that she wants to ruin his reputation. He immediately tells her that they are going to take care of the Jiang family and instructs her to get lost. She sees that he is no good after she has left and vows not to let him go. They begin to prepare for battle, and Jiang Han instructs his soldiers to open the box in front of them, and they see new armor and sword. The soldiers become happy as they have not seen such equipment before. Jiang tells them that it is a gift from him to them, and they become happy. Jiang then informs them that the weapons have their name engraved on it, and names them the New Dragon Army. Siko comes in and immediately becomes speechless on seeing the army. Jiang Han finishes with the soldiers, and Xiander asks him what he plans to do next, and he tells her he is going to the Yan family barracks, and he has an assignment for her. On her way, Poison Tooth from the Black Wind Village immediately sees that their soldiers are nothing compared to what they have, and they plan to take them down once they come into the mountains. They begin to plot on how to take Jiang Tianyi down, as they suspect he will not be expecting them. They immediately attack them and inform Tianyi that he will not be able to escape them again as he did the last time. He then asks Masters Zizang and Lin when they became members of the Black Wind Fort, as he is surprised to see them. They tell him that they have personal issues with him, and as soon as they are done with him, they will chop off his son's head. They begin to attack, and the soldiers begin to wonder what the blue light passing through them is. They begin to wonder how Zhang Yijian got in there, as he never asked about the Zhang's affairs. They become surprised that he can overpower 500 of them, and they plan to kill him. They begin to attack him, and they notice he is a 9th grade master, and they begin to wonder how they can fight him. Zhang and Lin begin to run for their lives, and they see that he has taken out their entire army. Tianyi immediately orders his men to chase them, and begins to wonder how Hanner could find him, seeing he is in the 9th grade. Back at the Yan barracks, his father-in-law is worried that all his money will go down the drain, seeing that he plans to use 300 men to fight Zhang Feng's 3,000 warriors. Zhang then promises to return 10 times of what he took if he does not get rid of them. Fat Rat of the Black Wind, who is the 7th head, immediately sees that Yan Tangying and his 1,000 men has left Biaxu, and he is sure that his master has already got them. The master begin to talk about Yan's daughter and notice that she is still so beautiful as ever, and Zhang Feng tells them that they will go in through the east gate and catch them by surprise. They immediately open the gates, and Zhang tells Ruxu that her father promised them half an hour a night. She then asks him where he plans to see that amount of gold if he wins, but he tells her to keep watching. Zhang Feng asks him if that is all he got, and Han sees that he is very clever to lure his troops out, but he tells him that he is the one that fell into his trap. Zhang tells him that 300 of his men will be enough to defend the city, and they begin to think that he is mad and stupid. He then tries to lure Ruxu to his side, but she tells him that he is not worthy, and he insults her and promises to kill her since she wants to die. They begin to attack them, and Zhang orders his men to strike, and they immediately notice that his troops are holding off his army. They begin to wonder how it is possible, as they begin to wonder when the Yan family could have such a team. Ruxu immediately sees why he is so confident about them, and Fat Rat tells them to get out of his way as he plans to kill Zhang Han first. He immediately farts, weakening the soldiers, and attacks Zhang Han, but he tells him to go to hell first. Fat Rat sees that his nails are blocked, and Zhang Han immediately breaks his nails, and he begins to perceive the smell of Fat Rat's farts. He then begins to wonder how anyone can stay calm when they smell like farts. Zhang immediately blocks his nose and slams Fat Rat to the ground, and becomes lucky that he has prepared for the smell a long time before their arrival. Zhang then decides to show them his true power, and they see that he has the ancient dragon bloodline. He tells Zhang Feng that he has been doomed from the moment he hit on his wife, and Feng tells him to come down and stop talking big from the skies. Han becomes angry and does as he wishes, and Feng notices how huge his force is, and Zhang decides to see how much of his cuts Feng can take. Feng suddenly sees an opportunity from Han and tries to take it and tells him to go to hell, but Zhang asks him if it is a double spear. Feng attacks him, and Zhang notices the strong energy he has, and he immediately tries to dodge it, but he cannot. Feng then promises to show him what it means to be a true Grandmaster. He immediately prepares another attack, and Zhang sees that it will actually get him killed, and he manages to dodge the attack. Zhang Han then asks him if they are doing a warm-up exercise, and Feng asks him not to hide but come out and fight him. They begin to fight one another after a small talk session, and he uses the double sword fury to attack him, and Feng begins to bleed out. Feng then tries to negotiate with him, but Zhang refuses and tries to attack him, but Feng bounces at him and tells him that he will never lose to him. Feng tells him that he is the one to hit the final laugh, and he brings out a dagger and tries to stab Zhang, but he uses another ability that is not known to them before, and they become surprised. Feng begins to talk again, and he immediately uses his blades to rip him to kill him, and tells him that he does not fear the past or the future, and anyone who challenges him will be killed. Feng dies, and Zhang Han tells his men that their swords are for victory, and Ruxu immediately goes to thank him, but he tells her not to thank him as he is her husband and his sword is supposed to point to wherever she wants it to. The soldiers begin to pray for them to have a child, but he tells them that they are not ready, and they also have work to do, and tells them to fall in line to the Black Wind Fort. He then tells his wife that someone is already on the case of Zhang and Lin, and promises her that their families will soon cease to exist. She immediately looks at him and begins to leave, and he begins to go after her. Seiko immediately begins to think if he can really be an instructor to such an army. Sanger, on the other hand, leads another group of soldiers and tells them to leave no one behind and burn down everything in their path. She then takes down another warrior with her whip, and she sees that Zhang Han tricked her into confiscating the house, while he goes with Ruxu to handle the enemy. She then decides to go home and get ready for the fight. Zhang and Lin continue to flee, and they begin to wonder how Fenger is doing. They immediately notice that their house has been burnt down, and he gets angry, and he is informed that everyone has been wiped out without any survivors, and they tell him to run away. He then gets angry and promises to rip Zhang Han off his skin. At the Black Wind Fortress, Jang begins to wonder who is thinking about him, and he sees that they have all been wiped out, and Ruxu's father tells him that if he does not see the money, he will not see Ruxu for a year. Suddenly, he sees a messenger, and he brings what they found in a cave, and Jang Han sees that it is an energy crystal, and tells his father-in-law that the size of a coin is worth about 10,000 gold coins, and he becomes surprised. He then asks if he can have a date with Ruxu, since they have 7 mines more that are loaded with the crystal. Jang then begins to walk with Ruxu, and she begins to ask him about how he managed to take all the cities and come up with his plan. He tells her to follow him to his room as he has a surprise to show her, and she then asks him how he managed to call his uncle to help. He then explains to her that he wrote a letter to his uncle, and his uncle came to assist him after more showing up to the family for a while. Jang Han then carries Ruxu to his room, and he suddenly sees Chang'er on his bed, and begins to wonder what she is doing there. She also sees that she has caused a trouble to the young master, and Ruxu becomes angry and begins to leave the room. She tries to leave, but she immediately steps on a mechanism that stops her if she tries to leave, and Ruxu begins to wonder what is going on. Ruxu becomes angry, and the following morning Jang Han sees that it was a long night, and he sees that he cannot do anything as the both girls are sleeping on the bed. Jang leaves the room, and on his way he sees Wenwen, and he tells Jang that he will love to join the Black Armored Dragon Army, but he tells him that he wanted him to be an instructor, but he refuses as he wants to be part of them. Jang begins to wonder what is going on. Wenhua begins to explain to him that he has watched the entire battle of the army, and he does not have anything to teach them, instead he would like to be part of them. Jang then tells him that the Black Dragon Army is full, but he wants to develop a new army which has the same treatment and training, but just different name, and he agrees to it. He then decides to leave, but Jang asks him about his wound again, and he refuses for Jang to heal him, and tells him the story of how he and his brothers were able to get the wounds in a battle. Jang hands him the poison and promises to give him the antidote, and he promises to leave him with the soldiers and asks him to go ahead. Ruxu's father tells him that he is the owner of the building, and he asks him how he got there, and Jang sees that his wife is still angry. They begin to talk about the crystal, and he tells his father-in-law that he is going on a trip, and he promises to fill up the vault for Ruxu's father. Ruxu then drags her father to see the armies, and he decides to get down to business. He then goes to pay his respects to his third uncle, and his uncle tells him to cast his dragon state out. Jang obeys, and his uncle tells him not to let his guard down as he has promised to watch over the Black Wind Fort. He then hands his uncle a sword manual, and he goes into the city. He begins to listen to the conversation of the people, and he sees Stanter. She then asks him how he was able to explain about the other night. She tells him that she was there to take revenge on him for bullying her, and she hands him what she was asked to deliver by Ruxu. Chang'er then decides to ride with him, and he decides to deal with her, and he begins to ride fast, and she becomes afraid that she may fall off. Meanwhile, Jang receives news that Jang Han is riding with a maid towards Yeshi City, and he plans to stop Jang Han, but Master Lin reminds him that they will be having guests, and it will not be a good time to intercept them. He tells them to destroy the Yan family and get back what is rightfully theirs. The messenger then tells her master that she can seduce Heist, and he is traveling with a maid, and Jang tells her to bring the head of Jang and the maid. Jang then promises to have him buried with his son. Meanwhile, Ruxu begins to wonder how he is doing despite that she sent him a note, telling him to stay away from her. She then promises to give herself to him if he returns and wishes he returns early. After a few days, they arrive at Yeshui City, and she tells him that she cannot stand it anymore, and he tells her that she has caused his brother so much pain, but he decides to ignore and go into the town. He goes into the town, and he sees that a lady is being harassed and notices that she is crying for help. Jang tries to help her, and he sees that the people around are telling him his business, and he sees that her boobs are very big. Andrew sees that her master is interested and begins to wonder what she can do to help her master. He immediately tells them that he has another beauty and they should save her for someone else. He begins to go away and then begin to wonder what he is doing, and she sees that he cannot escape from him. Chang'er then asks him if he is interested in that girl, but he tells her that she does not exist to him. He then tells her to get 2 rooms, and she begins to wonder why she will share a room with him, but he tells her not to worry as she will find out later. He then goes to his alliance building, and he sees some of his alliance members that suddenly begin to show him around the building. He then brings out the black badge to register, and they become surprised on how he got it. He explains to them, and she hands him a bloodstone, and he then makes a bet with the other alliance member and places his blood on it. Brother Wei begins to make fun of Jang Han as he is only on the 6th level, but when he tries his own, its stone shows that he is on the 3rd level. Then soon, Jang Han leaves with Miss Liu as he tells Brother Wei that he is busy having a fling with Miss Liu, and Jang Han and Miss Liu leaves as Brother Wei becomes angry. In the study, Miss Liu tells Jang Han that she knows that he has a wife, but she wonders if it is okay for him to flirt with her. Then he asks her if he is so famous for her to know him. She tells him of how she has heard his story so far, and they both begin to discuss them. She hands him a manual of the Bloodsword Alliance, and she also explains to him how the manual works as a quest book. Then as Jiang Han opens it, he sees the quest there, and Miss Liu also informs him of how he can buy and sell treasure. Then he immediately shows her a blue tears ice linglong, which makes her shocked as she has never seen one before. Miss Liu tells Jiang Han how much the linglong cost, and he tells her that he has more hidden under his crotch. Then she tells him to follow her to her house so that she can show him something bigger. Jiang Han shows his treasures to Miss Liu, and soon they depart. But when Jiang Han goes back to his room, he sees Sandra laying on his bed, and he ignores her and decides to check his newly acquired weapon. But as he is checking it, someone knocks on his door, and he realizes that it was the girl he had saved earlier that day. Then the girl tells him that her name is Ning Rong, and she had been sold to a brothel who told her to look for customers. Jiang feels pity for her, but unknown to him, Rong has other intentions of killing him. Then she begins to get all over Jiang Han's body as she begins to think of ways to hook him down. But suddenly, Jiang Han uses his powers to push her away and ties her up. He then tells her that her disguise had sold her off to him because he has been aware that she wants to harm him. But the girl tells him that she has poisoned the fragrance in the room, but he tells her that he has neutralized it. Jiang Han goes to meet her after explain how he caught her, and he tells her that he would not let her go as she is too nosy. And he is also not a monster. Jiang Han decides that he should search Ning Rong's soul, and when he checks he notices that she had a bad childhood memories. Then when he finished, he then tries to use his power to wake her up, but Chandra wakes up and yells at Jiang Han that he is a pervert. But he immediately explains to her that Rong is an assassin from the Zhang family, and she would have killed her if he did not save her life. Chandra apologizes to Jiang Han, and soon Rong wakes up and notices that her powers are gone, and when she asks, Jiang Han tells her that he has temporarily sealed her cultivation, and as she tries to manipulate him, Jiang Han tells her that she should join him so that he can help her to avenge her mother's death. Rong becomes shocked as he knows all of her memories, and she tells him that she cannot follow him as she does not trust men. But after persuading her, Jiang Han releases her, and she begins to tell herself that she would only follow him for a while, and she would look for how to escape later. On getting outside, Chandra becomes surprised as she sees Rong. Then she asks Jiang Han why he has decided to let her leave, but Rong interferes and insults Chandra by calling her a servant. Then Jiang Han scolds Rong for insulting Chandra, and soon they begin to head home as Jiang Han begins to wonder the gift Ruxu would give him once he gets home. As they ride on the horse, Rong begins to get jealous of Sandra as she sees that she is so happy as she has never been that happy before in her own life. Jiang Han also thinks of how Rong does not have any choice than to depend on him, and soon they reach a village and they are surprised as all doors are locked early, but they immediately see a small girl who invites them to their house. As they enter, they see the girl's father, who introduces himself as Zhang Long. Then Jiang Han asks why the village is so quiet and empty. Then the man tells him that a herd of bulls usually comes into the village, and they have not been able to smooth anything about it. The man then asks Jiang if they can take his daughter and wife with them to the city so that they would not be killed by the bull, and Rong volunteers to take the little girl on her horse. Later that night, Jiang Han and Sandra begin to cultivate while Rong falls asleep, and as she suddenly wakes up, she becomes surprised as Jiang Han is a soul master. They are then interrupted by the noise of some men who yell that the iron bulls are already in the village. The bulls begins to crash into house, and Jiang Han is not awake from his cultivation, and soon the bulls crash into a part of the house they are staying. But as Rong begins to look for the young girl and her mother, she sees the way the mother wrapped her arms around the little girl, and as she tells the little girl from the mother, her mother tells Rong that she should make sure she stays alive, and after that, the little girl's mother dies. Rong takes the girl to the temple, where the majority of the villagers are staying, but on their way there, Rong sees Sandra and asks her if Jiang Han is awake, but she tells her that he would be awake only when he is done with his training. After telling the little girl to stay in the temple, Sting tries to go and fight the bulls, but Chandra stops her and tries to talk her out of it, but Rong tells her that she has to do something. Then Chandra gives her the sword Jiang Han had gifted her so that she would be able to use it to protect herself. Rong immediately begins to attack the bulls as they try to get to the people, and they begin to hail her as a fairy that their gods has sent to them, but suddenly Jiang Han comes in, and he immediately attracts the bulls with his powers and begins to fight with them by using a technique. Jiang Han continues to fight, and he sees his staple and thanks her for coming as he does not have any strength left on him. The old man thanks him for preserving the name of their village, and he asks the old man what his plans are as they are no longer fit for habitation. The old man then asks him where he wants them to go, and Jiang asks them if they want to go to Piaxu City. He goes to meet the messenger and asks her where they are hiding and asks her to surrender to him. After much persuasion, she accepts to submit to him and gives him a condition. She tells him that she wants to adopt Shoya, and he agrees and tells her that her body and soul will be submissive to him. Chandra then agrees to help clean up, and 3 days later, they arrive at Piaxu City. Jiang sees that he has successfully broken through, and the cultivation was good, seeing he has another beauty. He arrives at the city, and he begins to wonder what is going on, and the soldier explains everything to him and tells him that Ruxia has been missing since the incident. If you like this recap, do let me know in the comments, and obviously leave your likes too. Do not forget to share with your friends and subscribe. Above all, activate your notification bell so you don't miss the next recap when it drops. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.